Heather.
Hi, Chelsea.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's a good thing we're talking about growth mindset after coming off of an experience that could leave you feeling very fixed and very reactive. So it's probably a little bit kismet that this is how we're starting our webinar today.
Yes, I think so. Tech challenges are always an opportunity for growth for me.
So we'll do some quick introductions. I am Chelsea Parkinson. I'm the director of coaching at PPCaDI. I'm really excited to be talking about growth mindset. I think it's such an important topic, and it really gives us a lot of places to go. I won't say a lot of places to grow, but a lot of places to go once we understand what a growth mindset is and how to use it. So Heather, you want to introduce yourself really quickly?
Sure. I'm Heather Hall, and I'm one of the leadership coaches with PPCaDI, and just excited to be here and talk about this topic. There's so many opportunities for us to grow.
Yeah. So let's start off by talking about just generally what is a growth mindset, because I think it's kind of one of those buzzy topics. We talk about it, you hear about it, you should always have a growth mindset. But when you think about what a growth mindset actually is, how would you describe that to people?
Well, it's more than just having an open mind. It's more than just feeling like you're a flexible person. To have the growth mindset means that you really do set goals beyond your reach. You really do make that effort to learn new things and be open to learning and not just feel like you know it all.
Yeah. I love, so Carol Dweck, who is kind of the pioneer around growth mindset, in her book, she talks a lot about children and how developing a growth mindset in children is so paramount to them becoming empowered adults and feeling like they have room to create whatever they want. And she uses so many great examples about how children view things like failure and how children view challenges, and the ability to look at something and know that it always has an opportunity to go somewhere. That failure is not the period on the end of the sentence, that there's always a possibility to do it differently, learn from it, apply the lesson. And I think for me, when I boil growth mindset down, that's kind of how I view it. Is it's how you can view a situation for the opportunities that can come from it and what you can create from that place, instead of just accepting it at face value, or that, this is the only outcome and you can't do anything with it because you've already failed or you've already missed the mark. But being able to say, well, I can try again, or I can do it differently, or, there's somewhere to go from there.
Yeah, really, failure is like the first step in the next phase of your expansion.
Right. Yeah. So we're specifically here to talk about growth mindset in the workplace and growth mindset for women, and how growth mindset, I think, serves you as a professional. So what are some of your kind of initial thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting. I think growth mindset is so important in the workplace. And I'm curious to see what comes up in our discussion about women and growth mindset. The thing that I know over the years is that if I'm looking at any project coming up and I'm like, well, I know this and I'm going to go with this, then I'm putting myself in a channel, in a groove that isn't necessarily going to serve me. When I look at the situation, I say, I know these things and I can learn more, and I've got all these people on my team and they can help me learn more, or I've got all these resources at my disposal and they can help me learn more. Being kind of the lifelong learner really helps you step into a situation and be willing to take that failure or take that rough step that you don't know how to do and make something new out of it.
Yeah. I love that. The idea of creation from whatever is in front of us. So we had a couple of scenarios that you and I had talked about that would be really great things for us to discuss, like the difference between fixed and growth mindset. So I thought we'd start with promotion, because promotion is something I know I've spoken to a lot of leaders about. It's very emotional, it's very personal, and it can be very disheartening when it doesn't happen, when you feel like you've done all of the work and you have all the skills and you've demonstrated that you really can operate at that next level, and then for whatever reason you don't get promoted. So let's talk a little bit about what the fixed mindset response to I'm not getting promoted would look like, and then how we can turn that into a growth mindset. So what kind of comes up for you first?
So with fixed mindset, and I think, well, I know that studies show that women fall into this assumption more than men do. You might look at a job or an opportunity in your organization and think, well, I only have, 8 or 9 of these traits that they want. I don't have that last 1 or 2 skills that they're looking for. And you might not even apply. So right away, you're limiting your options. Having the growth mindset, you might look at that job and say, wow, I'm missing this skill and that skill, but I can learn those.
Yeah.
And I might even have an opportunity to step into them before I apply or before the interview so that I'm better prepared.
Yeah. I love that. I have read so many studies about, women kind of stopping themselves short because they don't think that they can fulfill the role in the first place. And I think being able to acknowledge where you can grow, and especially for something like getting promoted too, putting in for a promotion is being able to look at it and go, I can grow and I have the capacity to. And I think when we're told no about a promotion, fixed mindset, it taps into the ego. It taps into, I'm not good enough, I'm not this enough, and it can be very disheartening. Whereas if we use the growth mindset approach, it allows us to validate the disappointment, right? To say, it's not fun that I didn't get chosen for this. It doesn't feel great that what I was hoping the outcome would be is the outcome. What can I learn from this, or what can I do with this? And I think growth mindset is being able to look at it for the what's next, and to be able to say, here's the feedback I got. Okay, I have these 3 things to work on. I'm going to work on these 3 things. Fixed mindset would be so focused on the deficit of everything that was wrong with that, right? And it's so funny how those 3 things can either be used as your catapult forward, or can be used as your anchor to hold you back.
Right. And I want to pick up on one word you just said. In a growth mindset, we're asking for feedback. Sometimes it doesn't just come to us. We have to ask for it and take it in and see what we can do with that.
And be willing to acknowledge that there are places to grow.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think that one trap that we end up in as people in general, but especially for women, is the idea that growth means there's a lack, right? Like if we're growing, then there must be something wrong if I have to grow. And I think it's so interesting when we get stuck in the connotation of things like improvement or better, that suggests we must be coming from a deficit. We must be coming from a negative, instead of, well, wait a minute, trees always grow, like things continue to grow even when they have bloomed. So the idea that room to grow means you're coming from a negative, I think growth mindset allows you to kind of neutralize that thinking and understand that growth means expansion. Growth just means more. It doesn't mean that you're coming from a deficit standpoint.
Yeah. And another way to phrase that is, it's not like you need to be fixed. You have the opportunity to grow and expand.
Right. Yeah. I love the idea that growth mindset allows you to change the flavor of feedback, to decide which way do I want to see this? Do I want to see this as there's something wrong and that I am a problem to be solved? Or do I want to see this as an opportunity to continue to expand my problem set, to learn a little bit more and all of that? So, okay. So another scenario that we had on our list, which I think is really important for growth mindset, is working with difficult coworkers. And it could be a boss, it could be a peer, it could be a direct report, right? So how could you bring in some of the tenets of growth mindset to help you work with difficult personalities?
And I'm going to confess up front, I've been a difficult personality in the past, And one of the things that I found, whether it was me being the barrier or someone else being the barrier to our working relationship, is that if we can get to know each other, we don't have to get, deep into the details, but if we can get to know each other, you might find out there's something really, really traumatic going on at home. Or maybe it's just that there's a toddler at home and your coworker never gets to sleep. So they come in a little bit grouchy, all kinds of things happen. But when we step out of the assumption of that person's difficult and we start to figure out how we can build that bridge to connect with them, then we've got more opportunities.
Right. What I'm taking away from that is what else could be true here?
Yes.
Where fixed mindset is you've already decided. You've already decided this person is difficult. You've decided that they're hard to work with. You've decided they're blah, 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 blah. And then it's really hard to not see them that way because your confirmation bias, which is fixed, is then only collecting evidence that all of those things you've said about this person are true. They're just fact. Growth mindset says, what else could be true here? Exactly to Heather's point. I have a toddler, right? So there are days where it's got nothing to do with anybody else except my toddler is, being a toddler and I'm not sleeping, or she's been, tantruming all morning. And it would be very easy to apply labels to my personality that day and to say, oh, Chelsea's just short, or Chelsea's, mean or difficult or non-responsive. And with a growth mindset, you might say, well, I do know that Chelsea has a 2-year-old. So maybe it's been a tough day in the Parkinson household in the land of 2. And I love that growth mindset because then it allows you to feel differently. So instead of taking my behavior personally, which is going to feel icky for you, your growth mindset approach allows you to take a step back to release any emotional tethers that aren't serving you and to decide, well, I'm going to choose to view this differently because I don't want to be caught up in, a negative emotional space that doesn't necessarily belong here.
Right. And that taking it personally is so key. A phrase that I learned in my coach training was watch what you make it mean. And that makes such a difference. If you come into something with a lens of, oh, they're talking about me, or, oh, she thinks I'm ABC or XYZ, then you start building the angst. But if you come in with it thinking, I'm going to watch what I make it mean. I don't have enough information yet to know what they're really saying or what they mean to say, but just can't articulate.
Right. And growth mindset is the ability to choose.
Absolutely.
Instead of decide. And I think that's so key, especially for women, because knowing that you have flexibility in how you're choosing to view something then gives you flexibility over your emotions. And your emotions play such a key in how you show up, right? And knowing what I love about this kind of whole circle where I'm going with this is growth mindset allows you to show up the way you desire to show up instead of as a reaction to your environment. So especially with coworkers, to kind of, finish up this one, if you want to be a more empathetic, peaceful, kind person, it's in your ability by turning on the growth mindset, changing the lens that you're seeing your environment through, which will then have, a different impact on your whole being, right? Like your belief systems and your meaning making. I think we're probably going to say that a lot today, Heather. It's about what you're making it mean. It's about your lens. It's about your belief systems, because that's your growth mindset. Your growth mindset is knowing I have a menu of choices from which to decide what meaning I want to apply to this. And if you want it to serve you, then we want to turn that growth mindset on and really get intentional about what we're choosing to believe here. All right. What else do we have on
Before we move on, I want to put one more idea in this. And you were right at the tip of it. In choosing, sometimes we show up the next day or we come into the next meeting and we say, I heard what I said last time, and that wasn't really what I meant. So you take ownership of where things kind of went awry,
right,
and show up a new way. It's part of that choice. You don't always get a do-over, but being honest about how things went awry can really help the relationship.
And your growth mindset. Right? Because even you taking a pause and looking at a situation that was you and saying, here's what happened yesterday. I want to reshape that. or I'm going to acknowledge and validate that this happened yesterday. That's not the version of me that I want to put forth into the space anymore. And I think that's a great demonstration, because growth mindset isn't always, I'm just going to swing into the future. Sometimes it's, I need to acknowledge what happened and where I'm at and how I want to change that around to keep it moving. So I think that's such an important point. Cool. So the next thing that you and I had on our list to cover for how to apply a growth mindset was problematic projects. So I can think of like so many projects where either it wasn't communicated well, or there's a piece of it that's confusing, or maybe it's cross-functional and it belongs in a lot of places and not everybody's working as in tandem as they could be. And that fixed mindset comes up a lot there, right? Because we get stuck in storytelling about the different cogs in the wheel. It gets really easy to blame, well, this wasn't communicated well, or we don't have what we need, or we're never going to get it done, or the last time we did this project, blah, blah, blah. So how do we use growth mindset to shift some of those sticky obstacles so that we can still maintain momentum?
Yeah, and this one makes me think of doing growth mindset as a group, not just as an individual, because you really have to motivate the team to move forward together. You know, one of the things that happens so often is one person or one department feels like they don't have to participate. And yet we as a group need to move forward.
Yeah.
So part of it is helping to, you know, raise the conversation with that group or that team and really hear what's going on for them and help them to really hear why we need to go forward. Yeah. So you're kind of projecting is not the right word. You're kind of modeling growth mindset in that conversation with them and helping them to hook into a new way of thinking.
Yeah. I love the community aspect of that, of like growth mindset isn't just you can also invite other people into the growth mindset, because especially in a project, if it has a whole bunch of people working on it, everybody shifting their belief systems and everybody shifting their meaning making shifts the project, right? Because it changes the air, it changes the environment, and it also changes the words and the ideas that we're using around the quote unquote obstacles or the sticking points, where they're no longer those things. Because if everybody's in a growth mindset, then we can come together creatively to say, okay, we're stuck here, or this, you know, this is over with this team. What's possible? What could we do? Instead of what usually happens in a workplace, especially with groupthink, is we all get stuck. I imagine it's like the washing machine. You're just stuck like in the spin cycle and you can't get out and you're just getting sloshed around. Well, we need somebody to press the pause button. And that's what that growth mindset does, is it says, we don't all need to sit in here and spin around the fact that we are stuck. That's a circumstance. We're just stuck. What can we do? What becomes possible from that place? And I love the idea of generating that amongst a number of people. And I think that's a great, the word that's coming up for me is responsibility. I'm not sure it's the word that I really want to be choosing, but I think it is kind of a responsibility of all of us as coworkers, is to help people get unstuck.
Yeah, for me, the word that's a key value is collaboration. And so when you come into a situation like that, it's not about blaming people, it's about coming in collaboratively and how can we help each other to move on.
Yeah. I like that you're tying that to values, because growth mindset, so many people have values where growth mindset is of service. You know, if you have communication values, if you have empowerment values, success, so many values, right? When I think about them and how they can be best executed, growth mindset is such a powerful pillar of so many things. I mean, we could be here for hours talking about the different ways of growth mindset, but we're here to talk about work. So, okay, leadership, one of my favorite topics, as we are a leadership coaching company. So growth mindset in leadership. Now, leadership is kind of a broad concept. So maybe we can boil this down to leaders. How can leaders use growth mindset to be more effective, more empowering, you know, just really good leaders? I think what initially comes up for me is not dissimilar to what you were just talking about, but is spreading it around. Because when leaders demonstrate growth mindset, if a leader is willing to take a project, spin it on its side, look at it a little bit differently, look at an obstacle, I think it's really important, because generally leaders are the ones we don't want to tell we're stuck, right? Like, you don't want to give them the bad news. You don't want to tell them this thing that they directed isn't happening. So I think if a leader comes with growth mindset in their toolkit, that changes that conversation, because if they're demonstrating a willingness to look at things differently, solve problems, not get hung up in being stuck, then employees have that psychological safety to know this person is a creative force. This person is somebody who is open-minded and willing to move things along. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. And one of the things that I think of when we're talking about an established leader that's experienced and capable of using growth mindset in a group, like I said earlier about having an interpersonal issue and owning it, that leader is somebody who can say, these are the steps we went through in the project, and not focus so much on the outcome, but the things we learned through the project.
Yeah.
It's not about focusing on the speed bumps along the way. It's about focusing on what we learned and how we took that forward, and we're going to be better because of that.
It's like a retroactive. So I last year got certified in Agile because I love the idea of sprints and retroactives and really looking at projects for efficiencies and what we can do better next time. And all of that is growth mindset. Being able to look at everything that happened, not for the outcome. The outcome is important. I'm certainly not underplaying results and outcomes, but so much of changing that side of the equation is being open-minded and willing to play with the variables on the left side of the equation. So I always think about our outcomes and results like a mathematical equation, because we're always trying to tweak over here, but we're so unwilling to play with our variables on the left side, right? And so our results and our outcomes so often remain similar. We're still not getting what we want. We're still not generating what we want to see, because we're fixed. We're fixed over here. We've got A plus B plus C plus D equals Z. Well, we really want Y. Well, that's not what happens here. So unless you're going to sub B for P or start to mess with some stuff over here, but you have to have a growth mindset to be able to do that, to say, hey, what did we learn the last time, to your point? What did we learn? What do we want to be doing? How do we want this to, work, be experienced? What can we change? And as a leader, in my mind, that is something that if you come to the table with, you promote such an infinitely richer collaboration culture. And because when people feel psychologically safe, their creativity is unbridled. And has so much more room, because you don't feel like you're going to be picked apart, attacked for having a new idea. And for me, the leader is the person that can really change the shape of that and set the tone.
Absolutely. You were talking about, looking back at projects, and many years in my corporate career, I was a lean leader. So we led lean projects where you're going in and you're looking at the inefficiencies. And the fascinating thing about doing that again and again and again in the same location is you're not having these huge changes, but you're having these small incremental changes that really add up over time. Right. And part of that comes from when you go in and look at a process, recognizing this isn't ours to fix right now, but this is something we need to work on in the next project. Yeah. And then when it's time to plan the next project, remembering this is something we wanted to work on.
Yeah.
So lessons learned and really capturing those ideas and bringing them forward gives you so much more opportunity for growth, both as an individual and an organization.
Yeah. And I think this pings kind of to what we were talking about with feedback and promotions a little bit, a willingness to be able to look at those things kind of unattached and curious. Just because we didn't get it right this time doesn't mean we're wrong. Doesn't mean we suck. Doesn't mean we don't know how to do our jobs, right? And that's that key of growth mindset, is that's what separates. We judge and get critical, and then nobody wants to solve problems from that place, because criticism just depletes all of us, right? So what I love about where we're headed with this is that it really talks about curiosity and open-mindedness and the meaning making. What words are you using to describe this hiccup? Are you using mistake? Are like, how are you talking about it? And what is that doing to the culture? What is that doing to the emotional environment of your team? So as a leader, again, I think it's so important that we're intentional about the way we talk about these types of things, because we want to continue to bolster curiosity, to bolster creativity, to boost people's desire to bring that to the table, because we all want those people. When I hire in my company, and I'm always looking for curious problem solving people, because being able to bring that to the table, the sustainability of that is huge when people can help solve problems. But if we're so fixed on the problem itself, it's so funny, right? Like, we want problem solvers, but as soon as there are problems, nobody wants to solve them, because it's how we talk about the problem. It's how we treat the problem. And then all of these brilliant brains are going, well, I'm not going to talk about what we could do with this because this is such a big deal. We're so negative about it. It doesn't feel safe to do that. So as a leader, again, I think the responsibility lies in, where are you trying to take your organization? And is a fixed mindset really going to get you there? No.
Yeah, and those problems, if we're thinking about, an employee as being really great because they find all the problems, that's nice, that's helpful, but what we really need are people that are solution-oriented problem solvers.
Right. Yeah. And they have to have space for that.
Yeah.
They have to have space to think that that's possible. And so often, I hear all of the time from organizations that I've worked with in my time in the Department of Defense, that people don't want to solve problems because they don't feel like they can. They don't feel like their voice gets heard. They don't feel like people actually want to solve them. They just want to be hung up on the fact that there is a problem. Right. We're always going to have problems. Always. I was reading a book from John Kim this week, and he was talking about problems, and that you are going to have a problem pretty much every day. There will be a problem. It's almost guaranteed. This actually might have been out of the CBT deck, now that I'm thinking about it. This was in the CBT deck. And it was in one of the cards, and it was about problems. And it was saying, you're pretty much guaranteed that you're going to bump up against some kind of problem or something unexpected today. How do you want to manage that? Who do you want to be in relationship with problem solving? Because it is guaranteed. That's something, right? We're an expectation heavy culture. We love to decide how everything is going to go, right? But that's so fixed, because we don't determine most of what happens, right? Like, I don't know what's going to happen after you and I get off this. I have a plan for my day, but I could get picked up and something could happen and I could be derailed by 20 minutes, right? So being fixed about our expectations is where we get hung up, because then we can't have a growth mindset, because the thing that you thought was going to happen in the way that it should have happened, that's should is fixed. If you find yourself in should land,
absolutely,
we're very fixed, right? But being able to say, how do I step into this new space if this is my circumstance? If my circumstance is this thing changed, what do we do now? So having the flexibility and the growth mindset there to keep doing it. So I think growth mindset as a leader is so important.
Yeah.
For leaders who maybe haven't been brought up in a culture of growth mindset, and it's not their norm, how do you think that they get there? Like, what's one thing that we could give our audience right now if they want to use growth mindset, but maybe don't know where to start?
Great question. And you said the word earlier that comes to my mind first, and that's be curious. Curiosity without judgment, without expectation is so powerful. It opens you up to so many possibilities.
I love curiosity. Just what else could be true here? What else is possible? No attachment, just looking at it for, I'm sure you've heard me use this metaphor before, but I like thinking about the weather, because you can't stop the rain. It's going to rain. Sometimes it's going to rain out of nowhere. And so your curiosity comes out to play with not, how am I going to stop the rain? Oh God, the rain ruined my day. It's how can I be in relationship with this rain and still do what I want to do? I can get an umbrella.
Yep.
I can get some boots. I can stay in the car. I could stay in the house. Like there are so many options. And when you're willing to be curious with a circumstance like the rain, now all of a sudden you have possibilities. You have places that you could go. You have things that you can do because you've accepted the circumstance, which is that it's raining. Fixed mindset would be, I'm going to fixate on the thing that I can't control. I'm going to focus on the rain. Growth mindset is, well, it's raining. Cool. What now?
Do I have an umbrella or a raincoat?
Right. Like, where can I get curious? And so I think for leaders, it's looking at the circumstance, what part is actually circumstance, and then what can you do with that? Because there's always ways that we can do things with that. All right, I think we have one more. We'll probably get to this last example and then some closing thoughts on mindset. So our last example I really like because change is so hard. So we have times of transition. So change management is huge. Organizations have been doing a lot of overhauling with COVID and working from home, not working from home, coming back to work. What are we doing? And I know I started coaching just a little bit before COVID. I started coaching heavily in organizations just before COVID hit. And I wish that we had this conversation 2.5 years ago of, how do you stay in a growth mindset? So what are your thoughts, Heather, on growth mindset during change?
Well, the first thought is know that change has always happened and is always going to happen. You know, I think that's one of the biggest struggles folks had over this last 2 years is thinking that all of a sudden we have change, like this is a new thing.
Right.
We had change before. So if we can get into that, and it's not even curiosity per se, but get into that open mindset where we're being flexible, doesn't mean we want to go along with everything, doesn't mean everything that people decide is going to be right for us,
Right.
but we have to recognize that this isn't the end of the world. This, whether you're working from home or your company's been bought out or you got laid off and you need to go find a job, each one of those is an opportunity for something new to develop. And that curiosity about, well, what could be better? What do I want to do better? How do I want to be different? Those are really great ways to take yourself forward.
What I love about what you just described too is how growth mindset allows you to drop the anchor of the reactive emotion too. Because all of those things that you just described are tough, and I think especially with COVID, it's the unexpected thing again, right? Like we have expectations for how life should go. And when life decides otherwise, and fixed mindset, we've all been there. We've all gotten reactive. We've all gotten stuck in the details of the thing. And I think being able to break that and look at that thing, and you said the word opportunity, right? Everything can be an opportunity. I was just having a call with a client right before this. We were talking about what opportunity exists from here. Because this is the thing, this comes back to the rain, right? You've lost your job, you're working from home, there's a merger. All of these things are circumstances because they're happening and you can't undo them. So fixed mindset is when we don't see the opportunity of it. And that can be hard. Certainly, I'm not saying, oh, you got laid off. What a great opportunity. So what Heather and I are not invalidating is the difficulty, the emotions, all of that is very real. And I think this is a space for and. You can be frustrated and scared and uncertain, all of those things. And you can look at the opportunity that can come from a thing. And I don't know that we talk about that enough. I think we get very stuck in thinking things have to be a but all the time. And they don't. You can be afraid and go for the opportunity. You can be frustrated and excited for what's next to come. And I think if we all took, just a 5-minute, where have I been in an and lately? We'd probably find some examples of places where we inherently do this that maybe we don't even know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I love that idea of, opportunity from, because you're right, like change is the only thing that we are all guaranteed. Change happens all the time. And this is a great time to bring in resilience. So
Absolutely.
Resilience is also part of a growth mindset, right? Like resilience is knowing you'll be okay and using evidence of where you've been through tough stuff before and where you've problem solved and where you've been creative and where you've gone through adversity and still, soldiered on, or, you know, gotten through it, or even found something better, right? And I can think of so many ways where resilience and growth mindset are such a good partnership. And that's exactly what you were kind of just talking about, which is the tough stuff happens. Can you find the opportunity in it? And think about how resilient you'll be when you can look back and say, I got laid off during COVID and I grew a business, or I went and learned this new skill, or I went and did this amazing thing. And so my challenge to anybody who watches this webinar is for you to just take a little time and think about that. Where have you demonstrated resilience recently? Because I bet everybody has. It's been a tough couple of years.
Everyone has.
Yeah, and what could that growth mindset look like for you moving forward? What opportunities can you create from there? So, any other closing thoughts you want to leave our audience with of ways to work on growth mindset, or, you know, just any parting words of wisdom for them?
Yeah, it all goes back to curiosity for me. And I think when we're curious, we're more engaged with what's going on around us and less fixated on what's going on inside of us. Mm-hmm. When we're curious, we're more open to new things. When we're curious, we actually have opportunities to do things and see things that we never thought of.
Yeah, I love that. I think curiosity is a beautiful, it's a beautiful transition from such a critical world. We live in such a critical world. Everything is criticized, especially as women. We are criticized for literally everything. We have high standards for everything. We're held against impossible, ridiculous things that we see out in the media. And just being able to be curious of what's there for you. What do you want to take? What do you want to grow? What do you want to create? And knowing that all of that is yours to choose is very powerful when we can start to step into it. So, well, I'm glad we had a chance to connect. I apologize for anybody who's watching for our technical difficulties this morning. We will sort them out as we move forward. We hope that you will join us for our upcoming movie reviews. We do a LinkedIn Live, a webinar, a movie review every single month on really pertinent topics in the workforce and in leadership and for your overall mental well-being. So I want to thank my co-host Heather for being here with me today. And hopefully we will see some of our participants in a future engagement.